Bo Richter was my favorite deep sleeper in his class. I actually had a 5th-round grade on him, but I figured he was going to go late or undrafted. He was my favorite of those types of guys. Wasn't talked about nearly enough. Why does he go undrafted? 2 reasons. A bit of a tweener, like he played off-ball linebacker and edge, but he played both very well. I liked him at edge, but also undersized because he probably is better at edge than linebacker, but when you play off the edge, you need length, and he has 30-inch arms, so definitely lacking length, which is pretty important. But man, if you watch this guy during the season, this guy is a machine. That's the best way to explain him. A high motor dude that is super productive, especially down the stretch in important games. I liked him a lot. I talked about it in a different video pre-draft. The comp I gave on him was a poor man's Andrew Van Ginkel, who the Vikings signed because Brian Flores is familiar with him, like kind of his type of player. So Richter got that comparison. Feels like a Brian Flores type player that they're going to use him off the edge and at linebacker. They're going to blitz him. They're going to do everything with him. So that's pretty funny. He ended up where his fit is, but who I compared him to as well is now there. So I liked Bo Richter, one of my favorite sleepers in this entire draft. I thought somebody might be sneaky and take him, but didn't happen. Number 6, the Vikings again. Said we were going to mention multiple teams multiple times. Chiefs and Vikings were actually not done with. Dwight McGlothern, who was a former LSU corner, went to Arkansas, and he had an incredible year for them. Big-time playmaker in zone coverage, and Brian Flores and the Vikings kind of moved towards more zone coverage than Flores ran this past year. They needed corner help. They did draft Kyrie Jackson, so we'll see. It might be a battle to make the team, but they needed corner help. There's nothing really set on that. Like Byron Murphy is like far and away the best corner on that roster, and they added Shaq Griffin. They got a couple other young guys, but nothing's really set there. He had a really good year. He does a really good job reading the quarterback and jumping routes and making plays on the ball. He could be a little more consistent, maybe just kind of going for. He kind of can get fooled by the quarterback, but sometimes that's how he makes his money. That's how he makes the big plays. LSU could have really used him still if they had him this year, but so I think that's a solid corner. That another one that I thought could have went in the 5th round. So really solid corner for Minnesota there. Really surprised he didn't get drafted. I said it last year in this video. It was crazy too if you follow us on Twitter. But all right, first off, last year in this video we had Ivan Pace Jr. Couldn't believe he wasn't drafted. He was such a productive, big-time player in college, and he goes to a perfect fit. Undersized guy is the reason he went undrafted. Goes to the Vikings. And we had that number 1 in last year's video. So I tweeted when Gabriel Murphy went undrafted, I'm like, this reminds me of Ivan Pace Jr. Not the same position, but just such a game wrecker guy that is undersized and that went undrafted. Mainly he's undersized because of length, but went undrafted because of that. And then he ends up with the Vikings. So he signs with them. This guy, I think, could have went as high as the 2nd round. I thought most likely he would go 3rd or 4th, and he just kept dropping. But teams just really take that size thing seriously. Like he for an edge rusher, he is severely lacking length, 30-inch arms. So that is very important, but this guy constantly got in the backfield, and he is more than an edge rusher, but we'll talk about that in a second. But he was constantly in the backfield. A perfect world, he could have finished some plays back there, but he disrupted a ton of plays. He's a freak athlete, showed it on the field, how explosive he is getting back there at the combine. He showed it as well. But I loved how UCLA used him, and maybe some teams had a problem with that because a lot of his production came from being in unique situations. And moved around a bit, and maybe teams didn't really have a plan for that. Maybe you're looking at him, you go like, yeah, pretty explosive, pretty athletic, but you have to use him this way. We don't really want to do that. We have a guy that does that, so that could be another reason as well. But he's an edge rusher. He would stand up, put his hand in the dirt. He would stand up over guards, in between guards and tackles. Like they would line him up everywhere. I said it during the pre-draft process. It's a poor man's version, and he's a lot smaller, but kind of how Arden Key has been being used, mainly how he was used with Jacksonville. But I guess Minnesota used Zadarius Smith that way. So some guys like that how they're edge rushers, but they'll randomly line them up somewhere else, and it's actually considered a blitz where they're coming from. So by far the best available player in undrafted free agency for me. I was probably a little higher on him than most, but I feel like most people had him third round, at least the fourth round. I thought he could have been a late second round guy, even though I wasn't really counting on it. But just by so much he can do is why I liked him. But on top of all that, again, another really good fit with Brian Flores, like using those unique pass rushers, those versatile pieces. But now they got quite a few of them, because they signed Andrew Van Ginkel. They signed in free agency, but now they signed an undrafted free agent, Gabriel Murphy, and Bo Richter, who I compared to Andrew Van Ginkel. But really, the Vikings don't have a long list of edge rushers. And, even though they're both versatile, I wouldn't really compare Murphy and Richter. They both can play edge. Their other position, Murphy's just still a pass rusher lining up in different spots. Richter can actually play off the ball, so he could actually make the roster doing that. Just really good Brian Flores fits. But Murphy was going to be, a lot of this was based off fits, and Murphy was a good fit with Minnesota, but he was going to be number one, even if he went somewhere I don't think he fit, because he was just that much far and away like the best available player to me. So